All right, welcome back everybody to episode 5 of Real-Time Design with Toby Schnaars Season 1. And we're now ready to get into SolidWorks and create the design for this 10 key that we're going to use for our 3D printed project to advance slides in PowerPoint using a foot controller. Now, I'm going to launch SolidWorks 2019 for the first time, and I'm going to take a couple of minutes here to go through and get the software set up. And I think that you'll find this very insightful. This is something that I do every time I set up a new seat of SolidWorks, and it's kind of going from the out-of-the-box settings all the way through to where I'm ready to start using the software and be a power user. And I can do the whole thing in less than 5 minutes. And so I'm going to go through, I'm going to explain what each option does. I'm going to let you decide if you want to use these options or not. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm starting out here by clearing my registry so that I can launch SolidWorks 2019 fresh and clean out of the box. And we're going to go through, we're going to see what an initial setup of SolidWorks looks like for me, Toby, a SolidWorks expert and SolidWorks power user. This is how I go from being completely out of the box to being set up the way that I like it in less than 5 minutes. All right, so since we cleared the registry, we're basically launching SolidWorks fresh out of the box. So I'm going to accept the end license agreement. I'm going to start the stopwatch here, and we're going to get going and set this up to be going from out of the box to working like a power user with SolidWorks 2019. And we're just going to do it in less than 5 minutes here. So let's start out by going to this upper left corner. I'm going to hit the little triangle here to fly out this menu, and then I'm going to hit the push pin, and that's going to keep these menus always visible, which is what I like. I like being able to always see my pull down menus. Next, I'm going to go into my add-ins, and I'm just going to make sure there's no add-ins turned on that aren't pertinent to the project we're working on today, which most of the time that means turning off all the add-ins. And then if you need to do a flow simulation or an electrical project or something, you turn on the add-in at that point. Next, I'm going to click New. And on this new window, I'm going to click the little advanced button so that I'm looking at my folders here that represent all my different templates. And on that note, I want to point to my customized Tobys templates for SolidWorks 2019. So I'm going to click Options. And from Options, I'm going to go down here to File Locations. And under Document Templates, I'm going to click Add. And then once I go into Add here, I'm going to go to my C drive to a location where I've created some templates for SolidWorks 2019. So I'm going to say select folder and OK, and then SolidWorks says, do you want to make the following changes to your search paths? Most of the time when this window comes up, you want to say no. I've actually posted another video on that topic, so if you just look in the description below, I'll include a link to that other video. So now we're going to go up here to New, and we're going to see there's a new tab here that says SolidWorks 2019 templates. These are my templates, part inch, part millimeter. I'll choose the part inch one, and I'll go to my front plane, begin a sketch, orient my view, and I'm going to press the S key to launch my shortcut bar. Now, those of you who have watched my videos for a long time, you know that I love the shortcut bar, but I am going to customize it a little bit. So I'm going to choose Customize here, and I'm going to go down to the commands for sketch. And one of the big things I like to do with my shortcut bar is I like to get rid of the flyout menu for line and get rid of the flyout menu for rectangle and replace those with an explicit command for line, an explicit command for corner rectangle, an explicit command for center rectangle, and an explicit command for center line. So I find that this makes it much easier for me to jump in the command that I want. I also like to go to the features commands here, and I like to add the feature command for extrusion and the feature command for cut extrusion. So now you can see that whenever I'm working in sketch mode, I can just press the S key and I can right away jump into center point rectangle and begin sketching a center point rectangle. Now, I like to utilize the auto dimension function when I'm in sketch mode. So I'm going to go to options here, and from options, I'm going to go down to sketch. And once I go down to sketch here, I'm going to choose the option, sketch, not search, sketch. And then I'm going to choose the option for enable on-screen numeric input on entity creation and create dimension only when value is entered. And what that means is now when I press the S key and I choose rectangle, I can single click here, move my mouse, let go of the mouse, 2, enter, 6, enter. And I've got a nice fully defined sketch with dimensions already on there. If I make a circle here, 1, enter, I've got a nice, defined diameter for that circle as soon as I'm sketching. Huge time saver, really awesome bit of functionality in SolidWorks. Now, when it comes to sketch settings, there's a couple of other settings we should talk about, which is shaded sketch contours and instant 2D. So with shaded sketch contours, what happens is once you close off a polygon, you'll see that that polygon feedback will let you know that it's closed by shading in the contour. Also, if you click on the inside of that contour and drag, you'll move around the entire contour. It doesn't resize, which can be a nice time saver. However, what you don't get is you don't get the ability to do a crossing selection from inside the polygon. See, if I try to drag here, I'm going to move the whole polygon. If I turn off shaded sketch contours, I can do a crossing selection by dragging on the inside here, and then I could choose, for example, perpendicular as a relationship on those entities. So it's just a matter of preference. I like to turn it off for the most part, but you know, it's going to be up to you if you want that option to be turned on or off. Similarly, the option for Instant 2D could be turned on or off. With that option on, if I single click on a dimension, I can type in a new value immediately. So as soon as you click on the dimension, the value becomes editable. With it turned off, what you do is you double click on the dimension and you get this dialog box, and then you type in the new value. It's not that much of a difference, but it's good to know what the option does. The other thing this option lets you do is click on a dimension extension line and then drag from this node at the end to resize a driving dimension. So that can sometimes be a nice time saver, but again, I usually personally prefer to turn this option off. It's just a matter of what works for you. So now I'm going to press the S key and jump into an extrude command. And once I jump into the extrude command, you can see I can type in the value. And if I go to my features toolbar, you'll see that we also have an option for instant 3D. If I click on this box here, I can then change this value here from 2 to 3 just by single clicking on it. If instant 3D is turned off, I have to double click and then double click on this dimension and change that to 4 and then rebuild. So it takes a lot longer if instant 3D is off or on. I tend to kind of bounce between having it turned on or turned off. Again, it's just good to know what that option does. I'm going to leave it on for today's session. Now, when it comes to the feature toolbar, as far as the colors go, you can see here that I can go to options and I can go to colors. And once I go into colors here, I can go into this flyout menu and say I want the icon color to be classic, and I want this option here to be medium light. And when I do that, you can see that now all my icons go to this green and yellow instead of everything being blue and white. Again, just personal preference. I just prefer for them to be green and yellow. You might prefer for them to be blue and white, and that's fine too. That's why it's an option. Finally, on the note of colors, if I go in here to an assembly, so I'm going to go to my working directory here, and I'm going to open up an assembly that I've created, and I choose to edit a part in the assembly. Those of you who have used the software for a long time probably know that when you edit a part in the assembly, all the other parts become transparent. So if I, for example, go to this truck here and I choose edit part, all the other parts become transparent. Well, I don't really prefer that method of coloring, so I'm going to go to options and I'm going to go to colors, and I'm going to go down through this list until I get to assembly. And when I get to assembly, I'm going to say the edit part should be this mauve color, and the non-edited part should be this second color here, this manila color. And down at the bottom, I have to remember to hit this check mark that says use specified colors when editing parts and assemblies. And finally, when I go to display, I'm going to say I want the assembly to remain opaque when I do these edits. And now what happens is when I go to edit the same part again, that part becomes mauve and all the other parts become yellow. It's very easy for me to tell which part I'm editing. So if I click this part here and I say edit part, very easy to tell which part I'm editing, but everything remains solid, which is good if you're pulling relationships from the other parts. And it's also a little bit easier on your graphics card. So that's it for my setup, my personal setup of SolidWorks. At this point, what I'll do is I'll close the software just to make sure that everything is properly written to the registry. So now you guys know how I'm working, what my settings are. When you see a little menu show up, you know that I'm pressing the S key. So from here, we're going to get into the software and we're going to start creating this model of the 10 key.